Well, hello there. I am so excited to, oh my goodness, excuse me, to just have, I had to reach down and get something, to have just a little casual chat with you today about what it means to be reasonably happy. Didn't you wish I was going to say, I have 10 tips to tell you how to be happy all the time. And I am here to tell you that I cannot promise you rainbows and daisies for the rest of your life. But we are going to talk about what it means to be reasonably happy and what the term reasonably happy, have you even heard it before, right? So reasonably happy is a concept that was introduced to me, oh goodness, 5 or 6 years ago in a 12-step recovery program. The term gave me the freedom to stop thinking that happiness is supposed to happen all of the time, right? We think that, don't we? See, the truth is that life is about 50-50, not about 50-50. Life is 50-50 when it comes to just about anything, but especially when it comes to so many feelings. It's backwards, but that's what this mug says. It says feelings, okay? So many feelings. And we have them, don't we? We have the good, the bad, the happy, the sad, the anxious, the peaceful, the overwhelmed, the calm, the angry, the joyful. See, without the bad, without the anxious, without the angry, and without the sad, we would not know the depth and the exuberance of the good, of the happy, of the peaceful, of the calm. So what does it mean then? How do we show up and how can we be deliberate in being reasonably happy? So I want us to take a look. You've probably heard before the Serenity Prayer, right? I had heard the Serenity Prayer before also, but I had only heard a portion. I didn't know there was anything other than the excerpt that was hanging on my great aunt's wall in her home, who had reached 11 years in her sobriety with alcoholism before her passing. And so she had this little plaque on her wall, and it said, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I kind of thought about it from time to time, but it wasn't until I began my recovery journey for anxiety and depression that I was able, has that been in your way the whole time, guys? I'm so sorry. That I was able to learn more and to dig deeper into the actual entire Serenity Prayer. And so, spiritually speaking, it was never intended for us to be only happy here on earth all of the time, right? Well, I mean, until the whole like Garden of Eden forbidden fruit situation happened. So now that we too admit that we aren't supposed to be happy 100% of the time, what do we do with that 50% that we don't want to feel, that we don't want to exist? The 50% that we don't know how to manage, right? That's why we're here. Because if you're here, you're telling me that you also don't know what to do with that 50% of the CRAP that you don't want to feel and you don't know how to manage. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you, I have a book here. See that? I have like 2 or 3 pages of feelings. Annoyed. I'm just going to, let me just read some that you may experience or maybe have never even heard of and think, oh my gosh, I've been trying to figure out how I felt about such and such, and I didn't even know that was a word, but that's the thing. Downhearted, agonized, heartbroken, enthusiastic. So we've got some good. Complete, avoiding, bulldozed, bullied, dreadful, grouchy, grieved, nervous, So many feelings. 50% good, 50% bad. If you're here, you've simply been trying not to feel certain things, anything other than happiness or gratitude or excitement, right? Anything negative, we don't want to feel. We don't want to manage. We don't know how. That's what's kind of gotten us here. So, what if the point of being reasonably happy is many different things, right? To you and to me. So, I actually today want to give you, sorry about that. I want to give you 3 ways to be reasonably happy. You have personally just been shown, as I was mentioning before, that we are not here to be 100% happy. And I will give this to you so that you'll have it. But as it relates to the serenity prayer and as it relates to being reasonably happy, I want to read the entire serenity prayer to you because it's something I want you to take the time to read every day, to pray it every day, and to eventually have it memorized. This is a major tool I use in a moment of extreme anxiety that I can turn my brain to, that brings me back into the moment and gives me relief and hope and a step to move in the forward direction. Okay, so the full prayer, not just the excerpt, is this: God, grant me the serenity, I'm going to read it from my phone, to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that He will make all things right if I surrender to His will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with Him forever in the next. You see, when we accept that there is even such thing as being reasonably happy, and that we're not having to fight to be happy 100% of the time, that we're not having to fight to not feel the things that don't make us happy. When we recognize that life is meant to be lived reasonably happy and determining what that looks like for ourselves as individuals, we are actually so relieved and experience so much freedom. So, one of the ways in which I encourage other people, including myself, to be reasonably happy is to have realistic expectations for yourself and for others, right? As an example, this was something that I worked through early on, and now I can 100% tell you is like not even an issue for me. And you will have things like this in your life too that seem to be the thing you cannot get over. And one day you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's kind of funny that it ever even bothered me. I used to feel heartbroken. I would feel maybe rejected, extremely disappointed. I would catastrophize, ask myself, why did I marry Bray when he never initiated dates? Okay. Well, first of all, that's extreme because every now and then he did just, especially on our anniversary or other things, would initiate a date night, right? But that was never good enough either because it wasn't what I would have planned. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It was kind of a lose-lose for him because I had unrealistic expectations. So I have a little thing for you to fill out where you can say to yourself, think about the main thing in your life right now. And this could be with a person, it can be with an event, it can be with something in your past. I expected him to never do that. I expected to not have this problem with my child. I expected to not be treated that way by my family member. Whatever it is, you've expected something, and the circumstance, the person, the event, the whatever did not meet that expectation. So now what do? It's their fault, right? It's life's fault, right? It's God's fault, right? Or is it your responsibility to respond in a way that doesn't have an unrealistic expectation attached to it, right? You can take any number of those things that you're now beginning to realize, like, oh my gosh, it is not realistic for me to expect my children, this child, to load the dishwasher without asking, right? If you know what to expect, or if your expectation is realistic for yourself, right? This is important too, yourself and others, there's not a lot of room for disappointment there. There's not a lot of room for hurt. There's not a lot of room for anxiousness. There's not a lot of room for anger. And the only person that can shift those expectations is you, my dear. So don't let someone who's not meeting your expectations mean something, right? When Bray wasn't planning dates or didn't plan them the way I had hoped, I let it mean something that was untrue. Okay. I let it mean that he, uh, didn't have enough time for me. I let it mean that he didn't care. I let it mean that I shouldn't have married him. I let it mean that maybe there was someone better for me. When truly, what it actually meant is that's not my husband's area of expertise. Uh, Maybe that my husband, was so busy providing for our family or taking care of his father or all of these other things that it was just not something he could take on, and that it actually meant he trusted me to do that for us, but he was still going to enjoy that time together. And that's the most important thing, right? And then we end up ruining that time together in the first place because our expectations were so unrealistic. The second way that you can choose to be deliberate in being reasonably happy is by owning your own part. I know. I'm going to tell you some things that are a little bit painful from time to time. Next time your expectations are unmet or unrealistic, you're not allowed to gripe or complain or blame yourself or anyone else. You're only allowed to look at what it made you think or feel, okay? When Bray did not plan our date night and left it up to me, I thought I should have married someone else. Okay, a bit drastic, but bear with me. At that time, when you recognize that, y'all, and this is what keeps us stuck sometimes, is there's so much freedom in naming things, admitting things, releasing things, and owning things, that it might be a little painful and awkward in the process. And the people you're talking to and living your life with might be like, what is going on? But that's what we want to happen, right? We've already decided that we are going to be deliberate, and it's going to surprise us and other people when we start to show up in that way. Okay. So you'll confess, like, oh my goodness, I really had these expectations that were unrealistic. I thought a thought that was not true. I said a word that was unkind. I acted passive aggressive, whatever the case may be. You confess that. And then you're going to ask for strength. I am obviously a Christian, so I would ask the Lord for my strength. You are open to choosing your higher power or whatever that looks like for you. A lot of times we keep that anonymous in recovery spaces. And so I want you to be free to do that here as well. And for people who choose differently, to not judge people who don't. Okay. So, then you're going to confess what you've thought, or the way that you've acted that was that showed up in a way that had an unrealistic expectation for someone else. And then you're going to admit that you blew it. And this might be a situation that does lead to a face-to-face apology with someone, or this may just be something that you're able to shift. You would have to look at that situation each and every time and know whether or not if there's a prompting to be apologetic or reconcile, or maybe it was just something that existed in your mind and you need to reconcile your mind to Christ in that way. But you will then remind yourself the next time of what that realistic expectation is for the person, for the situation, for the crisis, for the pain, whatever it is. So you would say, it is unrealistic of me to, fill in the blank. Expect the kids to load the dishwasher without asking. Expect my husband to plan a date. Expect that I would be exempt from this painful situation in life, right? That's still an unrealistic expectation. And then you are going to remind yourself the next time you go downstairs and those dishes aren't loaded, instead of the griping and the complaining, you're going to say, oh, it is unrealistic of me to have expected this. And that's going to immediately shift your response to where, instead of that immediate nag or gripe or complaint or criticism or outburst, that's my fault for expecting anything differently. And so then you're going to say, hey, so-and-so, I really need you to come load the dishwasher, please. Or, maybe it's something a little more drastically, like it's unrealistic of me to expect that my child will not struggle in this way. Or it's unrealistic of me to expect that I'm not going to experience pain or disappointment in this marriage. Okay? Like, you have to decide what that is for you and decide what is a realistic thought and to hold on to that. And you'll keep going through that pattern until it gets easier and more consistent and more automatic in a positive response and more automatic in a realistic expectation instead of the opposite. Okay. And then the third, pardon me while I take a sip of water. The third way to be reasonably happy is to truly be deliberate in gratitude. I know. I feel like there's so much going on right now that's like, Thankful Thursday and attitude of gratitude. And guys, when you are experiencing significant anxiety or depression or sadness or pain or hurt or overwhelm, whatever it could be for you, you are not feeling grateful. Okay. That is completely normal. It would be unrealistic of you to expect yourself to be grateful for some of the things you're experiencing in your life right now, right? So that's why it has to become a practice, and it needs to become a discipline, and it needs to become something you choose and you are deliberate in doing, because eventually that will show up and do the work for you when you can't. What this looks like for me is, and for many other people, and for you probably, is that we spend so much time expecting perfection and happiness that our automatic response to anything less than that is criticism toward life, others, ourselves. And when we are new to this work, being grateful is still an unreasonably oh my gosh, I have notes that I cannot read right now. It's still, what's the word? Unfamiliar, okay, to do this work. And so don't expect anything more than that from yourself right now. But I do want to teach you how to practice this and what it may look like in the beginning, because this is a third way to be deliberate in being reasonably happy in gratitude. All right. You will be making a list each and every day. I would love for you to get up to 50 things. It might be hard to just do 10. The moment you're feeling sad or angry, just get out your phone. I want you to immediately type 10 things you're grateful for, right? Air you're breathing, electricity, shelter, clothing, what's something else? Food, whatever it might look like, just the actual things that you can literally look around and see right then. Okay, I have a window. Okay, I see nature. Whatever it can be. Like It may not even make sense to you, but you just need to like pull it out of anywhere you can. Okay. It's really important to do that. And as you get used to it, it will become more automatic. And that is actually how you retrain your brain. Because right now, what your brain is used to doing and what your brain wants to do is tell you, you're not thankful for the air. It has a brief odor. You can't be thankful for air that has a brief odor. You can't be thankful for clothing when it's old. You can't be thankful for food when it's gross and not what you really wish you could afford. That is what having unrealistic expectations and not choosing to be deliberate in gratitude will give you. And as you begin to show up in true gratitude, not the but it's old, not the but the air smells, not the but it's not the food I want to be able to afford. No buts. No, don't add anything to it and don't take anything from it. Just be grateful for what it is: air to breathe, food to eat, shelter, clothing, electricity, light, daylight, nighttime. You will get so specific. I've even, been in such a moment where I was so anxious that I like literally looked at the child that was in front of me and I was just so frustrated with them. And instead of focusing on that frustration, I knew in that moment I needed to focus on the gratitude. So I was, grateful for those freckles and I was trying to count them. And I was grateful for those blue eyes and I was grateful for those eyelashes. And I was, grateful, grateful, grateful. Think of all the things you can see with your eyes if you have to, because you're not going to feel it yet. And you might not even believe it yet, but you're going to choose it in that moment. And as you begin to choose things you're grateful for over and over and over, I promise you that it will change the way that you think, and you will, now don't be surprised, you will find yourself being like, oh, I feel reasonably happy. I feel happy and in a reasonable way, because I know that around the corner is probably going to be some hurt. Is probably going to be some pain. It's probably going to be some sadness. It's probably going to be some disappointment. And I can experience both on this side of eternity because I know how to be deliberate in having realistic expectations. And I know what it looks like, and I can accept that it's 50-50. And I can learn how to be realistic in my approach to the part I don't know how to deal with and the part that I don't want to feel. And that is going to be okay. That is how you are reasonably happy. You have realistic expectations. You own your part when you don't, and what that looks like and what it causes it. And you show up and choose gratitude over and over, over and over. We practice this until it gets easier and easier and easier. And one day you are like, that just happened and I didn't have to work for it. And then you, my dear, are living your deliberate life over and over. It gets easier and easier in one way. Then you'll work on it in another way. And you will be being deliberate. And you are deliberate even as you work toward it, right? You're not deliberate when you arrive. You're deliberate as you work on it day by day. Thank you so much. I hope that you have learned a lot. I hope that you are finding that you do have what it takes. And if you're still not sure, I believe in you until you believe in you. I love you, ladies.